welcome back to the next episode of Magical Moments. This is 1995. So in 1995, the whales were on Jeffrey's Ledge. Out of Gloucester, we can either go south down to Stellwagen Bank, or we head north up to Jeffrey's. So in 94, the whales were on Stellwagen most of the year. But in 95, we were up in Jeffrey's a lot. And one of the really cool things about going to Jeffrey's Ledge is that we travel real close to Gloucester and Rockport. And so we go past Thatcher's Island, which is an island that has 2 lighthouses on it. And then we head north to Jeffrey's. And a lot of times on the way back in, we would go down through the river. And so we'd pass the Annisquam Lighthouse and go down by the river where there's just all these beautiful homes, and go under the bridges and then back into the Gloucester Harbor. So that was one of the really cool things about the summer of 95. When we started the season, I remember seeing a lot of fin whales in like April and May. And then partway into June, we went out there and we had 2 mother calf humpback pairs that had moved in. And one of those was a whale named Clipper. And Clipper is one of my all-time favorite whales. I had met her in 1994. She's got this really unique dorsal fin, so she's really easy to recognize. And this mark on her tail that looks like where she was clipped by a boat, so hence the name Clipper. And this picture is the only picture that I could find that I took that whole summer. It's a picture of her and her calf underneath the water. So that calf ended up being named Catskill, and I'm not sure I ever saw that calf after that year. But I did get to see them quite a bit that summer. I do remember seeing Clipper and her calf quite a bit that year. One of the things that I remember very clearly was this day that I had with Spoon and a calf and an escort. And whenever people ask me if whales are intelligent, this example is what I give. So whales are voluntary breathers. They have to think about every breath they take. So they can't sleep the way that we do. They can't just shut their brains down and rest for a couple hours at a time. We think that they're shutting down half their brain at a time while the other half stays awake and reminds them to breathe. So they float at the surface like this, and they breathe about every minute or so. So the 3 of them are resting near the boat, and we're getting closer to them. Either they're drifting to us or the wind is blowing us on them. And the escort comes up and does a trumpet blow, which is a real loud exhalation. And Spoon and her calf wake up, and then they dive. And I just think there's so much thinking that goes into that. I mean, this escort, I can't remember who it was, but, noticed that a danger was near. I use that loosely. We were getting closer to them. And so it did something to wake up Spoon and the calf so that they could avoid, bumping into us. Not that we were that close, but to me, it involves a lot of thinking on the animal's part to prevent a behavior or prevent something from happening. So I just think that was one of the really cool experiences that I remember very, very clearly from that summer. And Spoon's calf ended up being named Trajectory, and Trajectory was a whale that we saw quite a bit after that. So the summer of 95, I was the galley girl. There was not a naturalist position available. And so I worked in the galley because at that point then I could still be out, watching the whales. And I had a paid job on the boat, but I was probably the worst galley girl because I did not want to be in the galley when we were on whales. So I do remember this one day we had a fin whale mother calf pair, and fin whales very, very rarely breach. I can think of twice that I've heard of a fin whale breaching, and I didn't see either one of them since 1994. But this was one, actually, I shouldn't say that. I was in the galley, and it was on the Donnie 7. That was the boat that I worked on the most. This guy comes up and orders something. And I'm like, sir, there's a mother calf. I probably didn't even say sir. I probably wasn't that nice. I was like, there's a mother calf fin whale, and the fin whale calf is breaching. And they never do that. And I remember turning and looking out the window and getting to see the calf breach, but not getting to take pictures or anything like that. And so I think I would often give passengers grief when they would be inside ordering food instead of outside on the whales. So I started looking through pictures to find pictures to put in here. And I did find one other picture from 1995, but I didn't take it. It's a picture of Brian, who was the naturalist, and then Emily and Missy, who were the interns that year. So Brian was who basically trained me. I used to go out on lots and lots of trips, and I was working in the galley, and so I'd kind of serve food on the way out, and then I would go up and call the trip. But Brian was always there to jump in and help support me when I needed it, which was great. Because sometimes I would kind of run out of things to say, or we'd see something that I had never seen. And so I'd be like, here, you talk about this. And then I'd get an idea of what I was supposed to be doing. So I do remember one really cool day where I fully passed off the microphone because we had a sperm whale. So we had already done our trip. We had already spent an hour on whales, but there was a sperm whale in the area. And typically sperm whales, moms, and their young ones are around the equator. The males will be solitary. They go up towards the poles, but they're typically in really deep water, and Jeffries is not that deep. And so it's unusual to see sperm whales there. But this sperm whale was there. But sperm whales hold their breath for a really long time. So this whale dove for like 45 minutes and we stayed to wait for it because it was such a cool sighting. But I had no idea what to talk about. So I fully handed the microphone off to Brian, but then I got to enjoy the sperm whale while it was at the surface. And this picture I took, it was not that day. It was a different sperm whale that I saw a couple of years later, but just to give you an idea of what they look like or what their tails look like, it's a little different than humpbacks. So those are a couple of the highlights from 1995. I look forward very much to next year. Thanks.